If the audience will please take their seats. Thank you very much. I will now call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. Mr. City Clerk, may you please call roll?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Present.
Councilmember Jimenez, Councilmember Melendez, Mayor Torres.
Here. Before we move on to the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to make a bit of a comment here on one of the core issues that we've been facing, which is how quorum is established and what that means in our current situation, having 7 seats and 5 members. I will say that this evening's meeting will move forward with only 3 members present, as it did at the special meeting on February 2nd. Some of my colleagues have argued that we are a 7-member council and require 4 members to have quorum to conduct business. We have also had some attorneys who have shared similar opinions. The truth is, there has never been a case exactly like ours, and if you've spent any time in a lawyer's office, you will know that a decision in each instance is highly case-specific. After considering the issue, receiving legal counsel's opinion, and seeing that there is no legal precedent that speaks to our unique situation, it's my opinion that government would come to a halt if a quorum could be so easily threatened by the presence of vacancies. I believe it's in the best interest of democracy that until those vacancies are filled or those seats cease to exist, that a quorum is made up of members as defined in Robert's Rules of Order, which, quote, a person entitled to full participation in its proceedings. That is, the right to attend meetings, to make motions, to speak in debate, and to vote. Here we see quorums are defined by people, not by seats. If my colleague's logic holds that we require 4 members to do business, then the introduction of an ordinance on that February 2nd meeting prescribing 5 members returning to a 5-member council was falsely entered into when only 3 members were in the jurisdiction and Councilmember Melendez appeared by phone, which did not count toward achieving quorum. And I'll repeat that. California law requires a quorum of members participate from within the city. There were only 3 members of the City Council in Montebello that day, and Councilmember Melendez's appearance by phone did not count towards achieving the quorum in what he would define as a 7-member body. His participation would be contradictory at best and hypocritically self-serving at worst. The many absences of Councilmember Jimenez and the concerning actions by Councilmember Melendez have held this council hostage for the better part of the opening months of this new council. They've caused excessive meetings, disrespected our guests, and placed a heavy burden on our staff that has more productive uses other time. That is why tonight I say that we move forward with business. With that being said, Mr. City Clerk, if you can please do our invocation, and Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, if you can please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, we are meeting here today to conduct matters of business. Guide our hearts and our minds in a spirit of fairness, bright thought, and speech. Impact your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas, and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Our city manager is not present this evening. The assistant city manager will be acting in his place. Ms. Salazar, are there any corrections to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 2 of our presentations, we are recognizing Black History Month and American Heart Month. I would like to thank my colleague who acted in my stead last week during the regular meeting for holding this item over so I could say a few words. in Black History Month, for Black History Month. It's February once again, and the month we and our nation historically recognize and honor as Black History Month. This month is our reminder and that Black history is American history, and it is an essential element to the ongoing story of America. Black history celebrates the enormous contributions and sacrifices of African Americans who have helped shape this nation. The City of Montebello appreciates and is excited to acknowledge, celebrate, and share the rich contributions, lessons, and learnings that Black History Month has to offer all of us. The city's already kicked off the month with content on our website and across all of our social media platforms. I'm proud that the City of Montebello continues to support and encourage awareness of the role and importance Black history has and continues to play in our society. I'd also like to share a bit of my own story. For the most of my life living in Montebello, 33 years, I've wondered on how to connect my heritage and experience as a Black man with the larger community. As a kid, I was the token Black guy in class. In middle school, classmates would stick objects into my afro to see if they would stick. Many of my nicknames were based on being Black, some nice, many derogatory. Through it all, I never really got mad. These aren't experiences I would share with my family, and I was never taught or told that these things should offend me. Instead, I took these interactions as a chance to educate my classmates about a different heritage. I laughed along with them and showed them my afro pick, my do-rag, the cap that I used to protect my twists, a protective Black hairstyle. In high school, I was physically assaulted for my Black features. While scary, I never wanted to be anyone other than who I was. Despite these sporadic experiences with racism or ignorance, I was able to achieve a lot of great things. I was class president each year from 5th grade through 11th grade. I traveled to Australia as a student ambassador in President Eisenhower's People to People program. I joined many clubs, had friends of all nationalities, and always found myself bridging cultural horizons. I never really felt like my race or heritage hindered me from accomplishing my goals and dreams. As a representative for the City of Montebello, I've had a unique opportunity to celebrate my heritage, but I'll be honest, it has been a topic I haven't approached readily. There are 159 African American voters in a city of 32,786 voters, a tiny fraction of our city's population. My main concern in office has been, how do I represent all of my constituents? As council member, my voice has been shouted down in a lot of ways. I can't say for sure whether or not it was because of race, but I do know, even as the first Afro-Latino in the council's history, my story has never been encouraged or celebrated under any of our previous mayors, and not until recently encouraged by other colleagues. I would like to thank Mayor Pro Tem Peralta for that. Even to this day, one of my colleagues who isn't present here this evening refuses to address me by my honorary title. And while it may be derived from things other than or in addition to race, the fact nevertheless remains how much the Black community has had to struggle for basic recognition easily given to others for the same work. In many instances, Blacks in America have had to recognize ourselves when others haven't done so. That's why this evening I am telling my own story. That's why, as mayor, I'm using my platform and my own finances to uplift the Black leaders and community members this month that work on a daily basis to make our community better. People like Jim Ross, owner of Ford of Montebello, which is a top 2 sales producer in our city. People like Dr. Jelani Winslow, who has taken over the highly esteemed Whittier Palm dental practice. People like Venus Fields, who teach our children to dance. People like Chris Cully, who teaches our children self-esteem and resilience through martial arts and self-defense. People like Stanley Brinkley, who develops our children's understanding of teamwork through coaching youth sports. People like Kayvon Cross, former owner of Nola Cajun and Creole Barbecue at Boulevard Market, which recently closed its doors, but nevertheless should be remembered as one of the founding businesses that put our newest eatery on the map in publications like the LA Times and Eater LA. And people like Joella Valdez, a businesswoman who has served in high levels of foreign government overseas and serves as president of the Montebello Pico Democrat Club, and people like Shannon Callan, who have stood by our elected leaders in the past, supporting them, also doing great work across the county of Los Angeles. Please stand with me and clap your hands for these and all of our Black community members who make our city a better place to live every day. February is also nationally designated American Heart Month. This is the 59th year this designation has been recognized and is also the month our nation brings awareness to the threat of heart disease. During American Heart Month, the American Heart Association and other health organizations work to reinforce and increase the public awareness of heart health. There is still a need for more research and to increase our understanding of how people can live longer and healthier. I would like to remind our residents that heart disease is as serious or more serious than COVID. But heart disease is preventable and risk can be greatly reduced when we adopt a healthy lifestyle, which includes not smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, controlling blood sugar and cholesterol, treating high blood pressure, and getting at least 20 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity every day. Monitor your health with regular checkups from a doctor. So this means if you haven't been to yours in the past year, this month is your reminder to go see one. Adverse health problems related to heart disease remain the #1 cause of death for all Americans, especially among women, who often don't get treated soon enough or let their symptoms go too long without treatment. I ask my colleagues to join me in reminding everyone that keeping healthy is our greatest asset. If we don't have our health, we don't have anything. Let this month serve as a reminder and call to action to take care of ourselves, get a checkup, and make better health choices. And just very quickly, if I can take a personal point of privilege of speaking about health, I just want to thank all of the community members that sent me a word of encouragement and healing. About a week ago today, I underwent a surgery for diverticulitis, which removed a section of my colon. I'm sitting up here today ready to do business because business has not been done, but with the encouragement of the community and a passion for our city, I'm very proud to be here as I recover from my surgery in service to our residents. Mr. City Attorney, can you please read the statement of oral communications?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. One second. And if I may, to follow up on a comment that the mayor made regarding the proceedings tonight. And I know, Mayor, my apologies that there are a number of legal issues that have been raised regarding the formation of the current council and the ability to serve or ability to move forward with 2 members or, I'm sorry, with 3 members or 4 members. And I wish to put into the record to support the mayor's statement, a couple of comments, and my apologies, there we go. Okay, so the current configuration of the city council of the city of Montebello, there's a question whether or not we have 5 members or 7 members, and whether or not if we have 7, that there's 2 vacancies, whether or not that constitutes membership that should be evaluated in establishing a quorum. My office has conferred with Fred Wucher of Stromrosser Wucher, very well-respected election law attorney, and he would agree with the position that of a membership that is currently constituted with the city of Montebello, that 3 members is a quorum. The current Montebello City Municipal Code states that 3 members constitutes a quorum. Now, there are those that would argue that, well, that was under a 5-member body. It should also be noted for the record, if I may, Mr. Mayor, that that came back before the council for consideration, that item was tabled, which, and there was a revision to the Montebello Municipal Code that would have increased the quorum from 3 members to 4 members, and that was never acted upon. And the reason I'm putting this into the record, Mr. Mayor, is because if we have any litigation, I want to make sure there's a complete and full record. Also, as you look at Government Code Section 36810, it defines a quorum for a city council as a majority of the council. It doesn't state that a majority of the council constitutes a majority of the members of the council or a majority of the council of the whole. And as a result of the language in the Government Code the result of the language in the municipal code and the mayor's determination that a majority constitutes 3 members. It is the viewpoint of this office that that the government code, the municipal code, and all considerations of legal authority, including a case that was decided back in 1939 with the city of Arcadia, where a quorum was of a 5-member council constituted 2 members to appoint members. That's the case of Nesbitt versus Bolts, 1939. The citation is 13 Cal 2nd, a California Supreme Court case, 13 Cal 2nd 677. With all of that authority, both case law, statutory, and the municipal code, that tonight the council's authority is constituted by 3 members. While there are other attorneys that would disagree with this perspective of both my office and the perspective of special counsel, nevertheless, the mayor's declaration that this meeting will go forward with 3 members, it is the viewpoint that this can occur accordingly. So just wanted to get that into the record, if I may, Mr. Mayor. The statement of public comments at this time is as follows. The general public may address the city council on both agenda and non-agenda items. Please be aware the maximum time allotted for members of the public to speak shall not exceed 3 minutes per speaker. State law prohibits the city council from taking any action or entertaining extended discussion on a topic not listed on the agenda. Please show courtesy to others and direct all your comments to the mayor. Do we have comments both from the public or cards that have been turned?
Yes, we do have speaker cards and written public comments. Which one would you like me to proceed with first?
Please proceed with the speaker cards followed by written comments.
Got it. First speaker is Margaret Iser, followed by Antonio Herrera.
Margot Iser, live on Via Sandalero, adjacent to the golf course. And first and all, tonight, I wanted to present to you copies of, not copies, original petitions signed by people in the entire city, including this person who became the Citizen of the Month, who was designated last week. And this says that we want to keep the golf course, what's remaining of it, all as green open space. This is not a place to put up a bunch of houses and things like that. We need the park, we need the recreation area. It's all designated on this. And if some people have sent to you personally a paperless petition, and this is what I think that any comments that were sent in last week should be read. That's a separate issue tonight, because even though the agenda items have changed, those people who couldn't come tonight had comments about those items on the agenda. But I wanted to say, I was going to hand formally in the papers that are in the files in the city clerk's office of the petitions that I had signed, and I have to make more copies of, that were very popular among all residents of the city, essence to keep that, whatever remains of the golf course, as open space, not a place for houses, but a place for people to have outdoor area activities and everything like that. So those are the 2 things I wanted to bring up in this part of the public orals. And does that make sense? I hope I'm speaking clearly and slowly enough, so that I think, as I said, some people were sending in comments tonight, but they may have not had the right agenda item. So I want those all to be read out loud and put into the public record as we who are participating and would like to hear them. So those are the things. I don't know if you'll get to see the copies, but I'm going to be making a slightly different version, and I'll be still taking it around. And one person did acknowledge when I sent out the paperless petition to each individual city council member, I said, I followed through by saying they had to report that if anybody did comment or did contact them that way via email, that they needed to report it to the city clerk's office. And one council person did acknowledge and said she would do that, and that was Ms. Jimenez. So I don't know if anybody else actually was doing it, but I hope that they got a lot of responses and they made it on the public record. Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Antonio Herrera, followed by Alex Briseño.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. My name is Antonio Herrera, president of SMART Local 1701, which represents the bus operators, mechanics, service workers, and storekeepers at Montebello Bus Lines. First, I'd like to say that we are not here to attack nor bash anyone. This is an attempt to improve our working conditions and or even save our jobs. We're here to bring attention to our ongoing labor dispute. Our contract expired December 31st of 2021. That's over a year ago. We've met through 2022. We cannot come to an agreement. At the moment, our top pay for full-time bus operators is 26 with 42. Meanwhile, starting pay for commerce drivers is $28, and our Rock Transit is $27, and full-timers at Metro is $28. In 2021, I believe the city conducted a survey that found bus operators at Montebello were 14% behind the market value. That number is sure to have increased since then. We are asking to be put at market value now and not in 10 years with the 10-step pay scale that is being proposed. We have in the past understood the city when it is going through budget difficulties. Our previous contract gave us an 8% raise, but that went towards paying for our purse. So we took over that expense from the city. There's a history of us cooperating with the city. We hope that the city could cooperate with us. Since the pandemic, we've seen the city receive $10 to $15 million in relief funds. We have seen 51 bus operators let go. The ones that had to return had to reapply for their jobs. We've seen department heads, including the Director of Transportation, get a generous raise, and a number of hirings in administration that do not improve transit. And we're not saying that others need a raise, but that these people deserve a raise, but we're saying that we also deserve a worthy raise. What we need is more bus operators and buses. Meanwhile, we have gotten pay cuts in the form of increased insurance costs. We are not being left behind, but we are being pushed behind further. Going back to the point of saving our jobs, Montebello Bus Lines seems to be getting run to the ground. There is no effort to maintain and gain new employees. The city receives transit enterprise funds, but it's not being invested in the most valuable area, which is its employees. Our fear is that it will get to a point where the city administration will say they can no longer maintain Montebello Bus Lines and contract it out to a private company. We know your hearts will not allow that because Montebello Bus Lines is part of Montebello's identity. We urge you to please return to the negotiation table with a fair contract. We do our best through these hard times to represent the city. We ask for the city to be there for us. Our members are pushing for a strike, and even though we're told that it cannot happen, federal labor laws say otherwise. We are looking to see if a strike vote is possible. So we don't want to get it to that point. We want to avoid a strike, but if it has to, we will make it. Look to see if it can be possible. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Next speaker is Alex Briseño, followed by Vivian Romero.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff. I just wanted to make a brief statement that moving forward, that we not, come up with these creative and novel approaches to law, because this novel, creative, and unprecedented ordinance introduced by Council Member Salvador Melendez this past year has really wreaked havoc on us, and it hasn't been pleasant seeing all these cities, all these meetings come to a halt, all this business that hasn't been able to move forward. You know, we're a city municipality. We're not a high-tech industry where we got to be at the edges of law. So please, let's move conservatively. Let's stick with precedents. And that is just one comment. And then also, I just wanted to say that I do believe you guys have quorum. And I'm not really sure, but I think there was a case, Nelly versus Austin, which stated that vacant seats don't count towards quorum. So I support what was said tonight by our attorney. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Next speaker is Vivian Romero, followed by Will Severo.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for coming. I'm really pleased to see you're making every effort. Unlike two other council members who are a no-show, it's really sad to see that Angie and Sal don't show up, especially since, as was just mentioned, Sal was the one who introduced this district elections to us. It's disturbing that we have no-show council members, and it's been consistent. So I want to say thank you. I understand you have a medical condition, and you've made every effort to be here, so thank you for that. I also wanted to bring up the fiscal impacts that are listed here in the special city council agenda staff report. And here it says that the estimated savings would include the cost of the appointment of 2 additional council members and their services for 2 years, would be at a minimum $100,000, including salary, benefits, and staffing. Not sure about why staffing is lumped in there. So that's a good question. I don't know how you calculate or put a monetary value on the staffing here. It also says the cost of a special election will be from $250,000 to $300,000 for a citywide election, with an addition of $100,000 for service costs. Not sure about that. I would love to know what those costs are. Repealing section 2.08.050 would save the general fund between $100,000 to $400,000. So if you have an allocation of money and you're stating that this has a fiscal impact, it'd be nice to see that in your annual budgets. Because as I recall, when I was on the city council, the budget that was allocated for 5 members was significantly lower than the cost that they're now talking about here. And if this is an accurate number, Mr. Mayor, then can we separate and break down the salary, the benefits, the staffing, and the service costs or the insurance costs? In addition to that, I'd like to just ask that, you know, our budget reflect the exact amount that the savings would be if you were to appoint 2 new members to this city council. I understand that there could potentially be litigation, but it seems like every closed session has one litigation after another. You look at that and those costs keep mounting. One other thing I'd like to talk about is the public speaking. I know that my partner Shannon Callan came up to speak at one of the previous council meetings, and she wasn't able to speak. You stopped her, she was right here, and I believe it was item number 5. However, I noticed that the other speakers just kind of mixed in item number 5 within their time that was allocated. So if we could be a little fair when people come up and they muddle all their public speaking comments, that we stop them so that they're not just throwing it in there and we're having to give a particular favoritism to one as opposed to another. Thank you.
Next speaker is Will Severo, followed by Manuel Franco.
How are you doing, Mayor and Council? Resident. So got to see a little bit of the closed session last meeting, so it's pretty interesting. The stuff I do share on the internet, I just want to make clear that I do not ask for any council members' approval, permission, and even with that, even if they were to ask me to take it down, I'm still not going to take it down. During the times that staff wanted to read about me, emails wanted to be read about me, comments wanted to be made about me, I never once asked for them to be silenced due to that was their freedom of speech and they could take it the way they want. They can use the character assassination, but yet none of them are willing to actually have the discussion with the actual topics at hand. For the post that was spoken about, it was with one of the closed session items, which I posted multiple of the lawsuits that we've had over the years. And when a council member or a person running for a council, they make their street address public. There was a gentleman named by Steven Andrade that also ran that, put all the pictures of the houses online, and it was not found to be in a violation, nor was it an intimidation tactic. I was just showing that I just find it interesting how all of a sudden we get the lawsuit after somebody from the same household as a person running. We now had a lawsuit that's gonna cost the residents money. And thankfully, Mr. Glassman was able to defend it. And I'm sure Mr. Glassman could admit that me and him have never seen on the same side because I've spoken out about him many times. It's just, he did a good job on that one. So, and then I get to hear the former mayor that doesn't realize she's not on council anymore, but it's all good. She never once stopped anybody in our comments, but yet her mother was the one complaining that they're speaking about her. And so it's just hypocritical that some of these people are bringing it up. And as far as a photo with me and Ms. Peralta, I also have photos with the last 15 years of council members too. So it has nothing to do with the relationship of being good friends or not. You guys, I'm a constituent, so you guys are stuck dealing with me. So, well, thank you guys.
Next speaker is Manuel Franco, followed by Edward Franco.
Just a reminder to the audience that this is a business meeting. If we can just please minimize any clapping.
Mayor Torres, good to see you back and good to see that you're in good health. So, and that you get on your mend on your health. So, praying for you. But with that said, City Council and those attending, chaos and lawsuits are two words that describe the current council that we have over the last 2 months. City of Montebello has received several legal complaints, challenges, and current behaviors on Mayor Torres, Mayor Pro Tem Scarlett Peralta, and Councilwoman Georgina Tamayo. In addition, the present majority has sought to appoint two unqualified individuals, Maria Ledesma and Rick Alonso, to the City Council to develop a supermajority. Apparently that's being challenged, and it looks like we're going to have more litigation, legal litigation on that. Multiple members of the city staff are currently suing Mayor Torres for creating a hostile and harassment-filled environment instead of celebrating a positive and financial standing of the city, infrastructure projects, and the development of new housing community and sports entertainment facility. As residents, we have witnessed the positive and growing growth of our city and the leadership of Rene Bodavilla and his staff. And I know that last week there was a California League of Cities meeting where Rene is recognized, very well respected as a city manager of what he has accomplished. But these lawsuits from the city staff due to harassment behavior of Mayor Torres will cost the city of Montebello millions of dollars, and the recent litigation challenging our seven-member council will leave additional costly lawsuits. It's a challenge, and hopefully that the council can come together, work with our city manager to be able to to get these things resolved and move forward. I think we're all here existing to make sure that we have a better city. And in listening to the comments that were made right now, it's a challenge. And I hope everybody, takes a step back and really looks forward to try and continue to grow the city. I've been here many, many, many years, and it's gone through a lot of challenges. We've been in the red for a long time, and now we're trying to move forward. I know that a lot of your parents have lived here in the city, as mine came in many years ago, and we all love our city, but I hope that we can work together to make it a better place and not be challenged. So I hope that we can find a mid-ground and move forward, but I am very, very concerned of how this is coming around. Thank you.
Next speaker is Edward Franco, followed by Yvette Fimbres.
Mayor, City Council, and staff, tonight I speak to you not only as a concerned resident, but also a concerned father, a father concerned about the safety and well-being of his daughter. First, Will Severa has been posting about me, my family, and how I'm a Rotarian. Yes, I'm a Rotarian and proud of it. The things Rotary and its members do for this community and around the world are amazing. But please note, I never mentioned anything about Rotary. Will Severa did. You see, that's because here, I'm here as a resident and a person doing business in Montebello, not as a Rotarian. Let me make this clear. Rotary has nothing to do with this. It's the residents and the business people. Now, Will Severa also posted that Kim Vance is my daughter. Yes, Kim is my daughter, and I'm also very proud of that. But what was disturbing was that Will Severa found it necessary to share her number, her address, her home, a picture of her home, and pinpoint the exact location. Now, he had mentioned that that was brought up before and that nothing was said. That was brought up, directed to me. Now he's directing it to my daughter. He's putting my daughter's address on there, my daughter's home picture, and pinpointing it on a map. Now, why would he do this? Is he trying to intimidate her? What would you and anybody in the audience feel tonight if he did this to your wife or your daughter? Well, I would ask Yvette Fimbres, but I know how she feels because she, quote unquote, said, "Great research and thank you." I know former Commissioner Alex Brasenio, what she thinks, because she also expressed, in quote, "wow, wow, wow," in approval. Councilwoman Tamayo, you represent me in District 1, and I brought this up to you. And you tried to spin it off in another direction and made it seem like it was okay. I don't feel it is. Mayor Torres, I asked you the question, how you felt about this, and you were silent. As I mentioned to you, silence speaks volumes. I would ask Mayor Pro Tem Peralta what she thinks about this. You can let me know whenever you like, but I wonder how you feel about this. Well, with that said, Mayor, it's up to you what we do here. We've come to the fork in the road, and it's up to you to decide which way we go. Hope you choose the right way.
Good evening, Mayor Torres.
Yvette Fimbres, yes.
What?
Yes, next speaker, Yvette Fimbres.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Torres, Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, and Councilwoman Tamayo. I'm here tonight speaking in my personal capacity as a Montebello resident, constituent, and First Amendment right. I would like to recommend to Council to table item number 7 on tonight's agenda. I would like for you to take a closer look at resolution number 2311 before adopting this resolution. I would also like for you to take further consideration of the recommendation by staff to name a public street Topgolf Way. I believe that there should be collaboration and inclusiveness with residents in making changes or creating new Montebello street names. Rather, we should be naming our streets with some significance to the community, not free advertisement for any one particular business. As noted by Town Center Drive, the name Montebello Town Center does not exist anymore and is now called the Shops of Montebello. Also, I suspected that tonight there would be no shows from Council members Angie Jimenez and Salvador Melendez, as I am sure that the city attorney must have informed Council of AB 2449, which allows Council members with just cause, such as illness or due to an emergency, that they may call into the Council meeting to participate. It is truly unacceptable the number of absences Council members Jimenez and Melendez have taken from participating in Council meetings in the past 2.5 months, leaving their constituents in their respective districts without representation on city business. Further, I would like to educate the resident who came up here speaking nonsense, stating that staff should file a complaint with the Department of Industrial Relations. The city manager and directors all fall under the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA exemption. For those of us who have jobs and have served in the public management, we know this. Thank you, and happy birthday, Mayor Torres.
Mayor, that concludes all speaker cards. Would you like me to proceed with the written comments?
Yes, please. Mr. Clerk, how many written comments do we have?
There's 11 written public comments.
Before we proceed, we have about 7 minutes before we hit our 30-minute cutoff mark, so I'll entertain a motion from council to extend the time to listen to the written comments. Is there a motion? There is no motion, so Mr. Clerk, we will go until 30 minutes.
First written comment. I was asked by some of you to address whether, assuming the Montebello City Council has 7 seats, 3 members of the Montebello Council can appoint 2 new members to vacancies outside the presence of other 2 current members. The simple answer is no. A quorum is required to appoint council members to fill vacancies in nearly all circumstances, just as it is required to take nearly any action in a quorum of a 7-seat council is 4 members. The decision on Price versus Tenant Community Service District 1987, 194 Cal AP 3D 493 is directly on point. In Price, the court considered whether a quorum, in that case 3 members of a 5-seat board, was required to appoint new members to fill vacancies. The court determined that a quorum was required and thus reversed the decision of the trial court. As explained in Price, a quorum is the majority of the total size of a board. In order for there to be any vacancies at all on the Montebello City Council, there must be at least 7 seats in the council, a point that itself dubious. If there are 7 seats, a quorum is at least 4 members. Without 4 members, non-ministerial acts cannot be performed by a 7-member city council. Of course, if the Montebello Council is 5 seats, then there is no need of ability to appoint anyone because there are no vacancies. While a creative advocate, not an even-handed judge looking to justify appointment by less than a quorum of a city council might point to Nesbitt versus Bolts, 1939, 13 CL.2D 677. The case does not support that position, as the court in Price explained. The Nesbitt decision addressed a very narrow, unique situation. The peculiar statutory scheme of recall elections that existed at the time, but has since been replaced, where unlike in Nesbitt, the government code or another statute requires a quorum for action by a governing board, the Nesbitt decision is inapplicable. The government code requires a quorum for city council action, just like it required a quorum for community service district to take action in Price. See Government Code 36810. Attempting to act without a quorum of 4 members present would only serve to invite costly and inevitable litigation. I hope this is helpful in aiding you to navigate the uncertainty created by a poorly crafted ordinance. If I can be of any further assistance or would like to discuss this matter, please feel free to call me, and a number was provided. Very truly yours, Kevin Shankman. Next written comment. Mayor Torres and council members, please appoint Rick Alonso and Marie Ledesma to Montebello's at-large vacant seats. Thank you, Norma Ibarra. Next written comment. Please appoint Marie Ledesma and Rick Alonso to Montebello's at-large vacant seats. Is sent from iPhone. Good evening, council. At what point will you start acting like our council we voted in? Right now it's a circus. What is the huge obsession the 2 fat lady clowns have with past Mayor Cobos? Is it because she's rich and shares her money? There's no reason we should be hearing about her. Is she city business? She should sue the city and city lawyer for reading emails against her. Someone should tell her, get her more money, get those clowns ticket off even more. I'm still waiting on the donation, Mayor Torres, from Shore High School, but you don't have a pot to piss in, just pot. Never mind, I'll ask Mayor Cobos instead, she's generous. Hey, 2 fat ladies, why didn't you question Mayor Torres and Council Peralta on city's dime? You both had nothing to start. Now you're both elected and have houses and no jobs. How's that for a big red flag? We're all questions about no jobs for them. Council Peralta, you bought a house for $700,000 with no job. Mayor Torres, you have a house and no job, and both have mortgage payments. Am I paying the payments with my taxes? Hey, clowns, let's start asking them who is fronting the bill. Emmett. Next written comment. We are silent. We, the silent, have been woken up. The ones that are voicing their opinions on social media is for their personal benefit, not the city or the residents. The elections we had were not fair. We need to recall all of you and do elections all over again, re-elect new people, and not all the crooks that are up there just thinking about their pockets. You're all trying to widen your pockets with the pot shops or grow facilities in our city. We are residents of the great city. You are acting like children up there. We don't want to be represented like that. And I hope Angie and Sal do walk out so no business can be done for the city's sake. That is the best thing that can happen. Thank you for your time. Susan Karapetian. I would like to express my appreciation to Mayor Torres, Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, and Councilwoman Tamayo for their leadership and dedication of, and to the residents of Montebello. Sandra Sage. Attention City Council members, especially Ms. Peralta, who is supposed to represent District 2, to which this relates. Since I did not pay to get email notice and had trouble accessing the agenda online for tonight's February 8 meeting, I don't know the exact item number. Here is my comment. To maintain the integrity of our public golf course, I, one of the many concerned citizens, people, residents, taxpayers, voters in the city, want to keep the name of the street, which has always run through the golf course, the same as it is and always was, and so I encourage you to vote no on the item on tonight's agenda, which proposes to change it. Respectfully submitted, Margot Iser. I would like to provide the following public comment for the council meeting. My name is Kevin Wong from Fast Deer Plus Charter on 8105 Slauson Avenue, and I'm writing to follow up on the council's vote from the December 21st meeting. At that meeting, the council agreed to transmit letters stating eviction and enforcement of penalties for business that received a notice relating to the Brownfield Overlay District. As of Tuesday, February 8, we have not received these letters. I would like to request that these letters be sent out as soon as possible to help alleviate our concerns. Furthermore, I would also like to request that the date of the study session be determined quickly as possible. This will allow impacted businesses to have a more concrete timeline of when we can expect the matters to be resolved. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Kevin Wong. Please keep the name of the street running through the Montebello Golf Course. Like many Montebello residents, I am not pleased with changes made in our city without voter input. Can we at least preserve street names? The golf course and pond should have been left as is for historical purposes. The Montebello Hill should have been left alone for wildlife rather than ugly commercial apartments. Please learn to preserve our city. Irene A. Good
Mr.
evening.
City Clerk, and I believe that makes 30 minutes and concludes the time for public comments. If we can please enter the rest into the record.
Understood. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Ms. Salazar, are there any staff communications on items of community interest?
No, Mayor, there are not.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to regular business, we are going to reorder the items a little bit. The way that they appear, in particular respect to the issue if we're going to go to a 5-member council or 7-member council, is a little discombobulating. We have one section under regular business and another section under consent. I will be moving those items to be heard concurrently at the very conclusion of the meeting after council orals. So getting started with regular business, we have item number 3, fiscal year 2022-23 second quarter budget report. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Mayor, there is. I'd like to ask Michael Solorza to come up to the podium.
Thank you very much. Mr. Solorza, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Tonight, we'll be presenting our second quarter budget update. That takes us through, basically through the end of January with our financials. If I can get the presentation up, please. There we go. Thank you. So for tonight, we'll be going over some revenue highlights, expenditure updates, staffing updates, some budget amendments being requested, kind of a preview of where we ended last fiscal year, update on our hotel operations, and then obviously discussion at the end if there's questions. So for tonight, this is the second quarter budget report, just kind of put it in context of where we are in the fiscal year. We're utilizing actual data from July, the start of the fiscal year, through the end of January of 2023. So it's an opportunity to kind of recalibrate our projections answer the question of where we will end the fiscal year, and using a combination of results from last fiscal year and the first 7 months to better project where we're going to end June of 2023. And then also, this is kind of the kickoff of the budget preparation for next fiscal year, 2023-24. So start with the good news, looking at ending the current fiscal year with in the general fund, $917,000 surplus. That is up from the first quarter. The first quarter projection was an $840,000 surplus. So while the projected expenditures have increased, so has revenue. So we're looking at recalibrating $917,000 surplus. As a reminder, of the budget that was adopted on June 8th, 2022, was a $695,000 surplus. So trending in the right direction. I want to give an update on where we ended last fiscal year as my staff and I are finishing our financial statements. Good news, we ended last fiscal year with a surplus of $7.31 million in the general fund. Our total general fund balance is now up to $14.7 million. That represents 22% of general fund operating revenue. What's nice about this amount is there's City Council adopted reserve policies that were first presented and adopted in June of 2020. Our general fund reserves have not been at a level to where we could actually operationalize the various designations of those reserve policies, but now we're getting to the point where we can. I'm happy to report that the water sale closed last week. This is the sale of our city's water system. Closed last week to San Gabriel Valley Water Company, and approximately $16.4 million in sale proceeds was received today. So that will obviously be added to our general fund balance. All things being equal, we're looking at having ending the current fiscal year, with reserves north of $32 million. So some of the healthiest reserve amounts we've had in several years. So just a little bit about the reserve policies. Again, those were first approved by council in June of 2020. The first time the city actually has ever had comprehensive reserve policies in place and adopted by the city council. Assuming we do end the year with about $33 million in general fund reserves, this is what our reserve designations would look like per the policy. About $16.7 million for economic uncertainties, basically a rainy day fund. Another $3.3 million for our various unearned liabilities, such as OPEB or retirement. Putting another $3.3 million away for equipment and technical replacement. $3.3 million for various capital improvement projects. And then you see these fixed amounts for deferred maintenance, insurance or risk management, and economic sustainability. So again, if we do end the year at about $33 million, $33 million, this is kind of what our reserves would look like per the policy. Again, very, very positive change, very positive development with the additional revenue coming in this fiscal year. So going back now to current fiscal year, looking at where we're looking to end, at least with general fund revenue. Again, we're up about $2.186 million versus the adopted budget. A large portion of that is additional sales tax, as that continues to perform very well. And then some additional revenues and charges for services and our other revenue category. But again, mostly the positive news coming from sales tax. So our general fund revenue pie, again, sales tax, property tax, more than half of our general fund revenue comes from those two sources. Charges for services, fines and forfeitures, license and permits, kind of rounding out the other major revenue categories. But again, for Montebello, it's property tax. City gets about 9.8 cents per dollar of property tax revenue. And then obviously sales tax, that's all three categories. Bradley Burns, the Measure H, and the sales tax sharing agreement with the city of Monterey Park. So overall, the revenue in the general fund being up, improved sales tax performance. We got a new source of franchise tax revenue that's about $300,000 in additional revenue for the organic waste implementation. License and permits continued strong growth there with the development in Montebello Hills. We're getting additional one-time license and permit revenue for the housing development. Again, it is one-time revenue. It goes to the general fund. It helps us out. Obviously, once that development is completed, our revenue dropped back down to more normal, but at the time, for the time, it absolutely helps us and continues to operate or help our operations. Our property tax projections, based off the first quarter, it looked like it was going to be a little weaker, but receipts came in really high in December, and so recalibrating property tax projections is coming a little higher than budgeted. And then had to adjust down fines and forfeitures in terms of moving violations, not coming in quite as strong as initially projected. So since sales tax is the largest single source of general fund revenue, it's important to kind of focus on that. And again, our sales tax is made up of 3 different sources: the 1% Bradley Burns, the newly enacted Measure H, the 3/4 cent additional transaction and use tax, and then the amount we get from Monterey Park as part of the sales tax sharing agreement we have with them. So all told, we're looking at over 25 million, almost 26 million projected in sales tax revenue from all 3 of those sources. And sales tax, the consumer continues to spend, so sales tax continues to perform well. Updated forecast assumes an average growth of 2.3% across all 3 sources. Bradley Burns tax is about a 1% growth. Our Measure H is still performing well, projected about 4.4% growth from where we originally started in July. Now, on the flip side of the ledger, looking at expenditures, expenditures are up. You'll see the amended budget of about just over 70 million. Second quarter forecast, looking at just under 70 million, 69.955 million. And there's obviously puts and takes throughout. Expenses down in community development, a little higher in fire. That's primarily from overtime. You'll see some savings in police, even though overtime is up. There is a lot of savings with some of the vacancies in full-time positions. Public Works, you'll see some salary savings, but also some contractual savings. So, all said and done, we're looking at the projected general fund expenses coming in higher than the adopted budget, but lower than where we are with the amended budget. And then the pie chart for our general fund expenditures, fire and police obviously being the largest portions of our general fund expenditure budget. Public safety being very important here in Montebello. Police and fire taking up 29%, 25% respectively. The majority of the budget amendments occur kind of at fiscal year start when we roll over purchase orders and some previous expenses. For example, there's a general plan is getting updated. That original budget amount is rolled over to the new fiscal year. We're completing our body-worn camera purchase, so that gets rolled over. So there's several purchases that were approved in the prior fiscal years that get rolled over, hence amending the budget. So of that change from the adopted to the amended budget, about 2.1 million of it is from prior city council approved expenses and projects that get rolled forward. However, in front of you are some additional budget amendments. They're explained in detail in the agenda report, but obviously I want to provide some additional color commentary. The biggest requested budget amendment is the 15.5 $4.5 million, excuse me, for the golf course renovation project. This, as you know, bonds were approved in September. We sold bonds. The project is underway. This is, quite frankly, a cleanup item to actually appropriate the funds in the appropriate capital project fund so that we can start reimbursing our vendors who have done phase 1 and are currently doing phase 2 project with the golf course. The $3.145 million is to recognize a portion of the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds for the citywide IT project. So again, the work is underway. We have invoices to pay. This is actually recognizing that revenue and putting it in the appropriate fund to pay for those expenses. And then in the general fund, there's several required budget amendments. $429,000 is a payment to Caltrans when they performed an incurred cost audit. There were some disallowed expenses, and this is the city's share that we have to pay back of these disallowed grant funds. We have to use general fund money to pay that back. We have a settlement payment, installment 1 for $350,000. In Parks and Rec, additional full and part-time wages. Obviously, with the minimum wage increasing, we have increases there as well. Some required maintenance, gym floor refurbishing projects, some other items that require an additional $570,000 in the general fund. And then an additional $679,000 for fire constant staffing, basically overtime, as we're backfilling full-time vacant positions. Again, we know there's vacancies in police and fire, working very hard to fill those positions. We have the incentive program to help recruit, but this is $679,000 additional overtime that is required for the backfilling of those positions. And then related to that, we have some staffing updates to the table of organization, 3 additional positions in human resources, an additional human resources manager, 2 additional analysts, and that's to address our employee benefits administration, MOU implementation. As we got the new MOUs in place, as we're rolling out the implementation, we realized there's additional staffing to focus on those specific areas that is needed. In addition, at the manager level for some additional support to the director. And then in transportation, it really is kind of a cleanup here, modernization of titles, getting rid of a couple of titles. Those positions are vacant, so nobody's being impacted. And then adding other titles, other classifications. Again, more of a cleanup in transit operations to better orient their operations with the proper titles. Now, focus on the hotels. This is always important. The city-owned Hilton Garden Inn and Home 2 Suites. The first quarter report showed improving occupancy rates and improving operations at both hotels now that we're moving further past the worst part of the pandemic and its impact on business and leisure travel. Projecting, you'll see it at the current quarter, Hilton Garden Inn about $372,000 surplus, Home 2 Suites just north of $2 million, $2.8 million, just south of $3 million actually, as of the second quarter. And you'll see the column to the left there, last year's actuals, Hilton Garden Inn ended with about $270,000 surplus, Home 2 Suites with about $2.2 million surplus. And looking back over the last several fiscal years, you'll see that dip in 19 and 20 and a little bit in 2021. That was solely due to the pandemic. Drops in occupancy as people stopped traveling. There was no business travel or leisure travel. Really impacted the occupancies. But again, we're starting to return to pre-pandemic occupancy levels at the hotels and performance, getting back to what would be considered normal. And just as a reminder, even through the pandemic, all the debt service, all the operating expenses were paid utilizing, in this case for Hilton Garden Inn, their ongoing revenue. The way the revenue flows is there are certain trustee accounts that basically we're prepaying ourselves for debt service. So in prior years, money was set aside so that debt service would be paid, operating expenses would be paid, even as operating revenue fell during the pandemic. And while not as dire, Home 2 Suites still was impacted negatively by the pandemic, but again, continuing to improve as we're moving further and further out from the worst of the pandemic. Hotel occupancy and average daily rate continue to improve. So very good, strong operations in both hotels. So with that, I will conclude and we'll entertain questions and comments. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Solorza. Councilmember Tamayo, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have questions, just general comments. Thank you so much for the budget update and presentation. It's really great to see our Measure H funds increasing as well as our sales tax. I think this is a good indicator of our local economy really trajecting towards a healthier rise and hopefully recovering from COVID-19 pandemic that really sent shockwaves throughout our community. I would like to say that although this is a budget presentation, I think that the additional items, actionable items, such as budget amendments and staffing reorganization, should be their own agenda items. Personally, I believe these require their actual staff reports that really delineate their specific financials and descriptions, rather than kind of being convoluted within a more receive and file type of budget update. In the past, I have continuously advocated in past meetings that any new positions should include a description of that position and an estimate of how much each position in terms of salary and benefits it would cost the city. This crucial information, I believe, has been failed to be included again. With additional positions that are being added, again, I believe it's as council and our community, we really do deserve to be presented with these financials and descriptions. When our community, asks us about these types of positions being added and us not understanding why they're needed or just a general description or the cost that would incur the city, I think that that's something that council should be able to tell that story and should be able to answer those questions from our residents. Through my research of other local cities, particularly two that I just was able to get through, their agendas for the past year, they don't include actionable items such as budget amendments and additions to staffing in their budget updates. These additions to staff are normally detailed and also include cost per employee on separate items. I see that many positions being added are heavy upper management and administrative positions, and although I don't oppose this, and I've continued to always bring this up, is that the priority of this council should be in focusing our staffing in our public service sector, which includes our shortfalls in manpower within our fire, police, and transit operations. As council, we really do have that fiduciary duty of figuring out how we ensure that we increase our staffing in those positions that work directly with our community, that keep our community safe, and really do our best, whether it's figuring out more incentives or figuring out the shortfall in benefits that our employees are not receiving in ways that we can retain them and continue to bring more employees within these public service sectors first before continuing to increase any type of staffing in the upper management type of administrative positions. And that concludes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Director Solorza, no questions myself, but I do have a couple comments, and I think the Mayor Pro Tem said them very eloquently and very detailed, so I'll keep my comments a little bit shorter. Both of us have joined in the kind of transparency that I think the community would like to see when it comes to these budget updates. These budget reports have been used as vehicles to make substantial changes to our finances and our position controls. These changes come with little explanation or reasoning. As much information as is contained in these items, they really should be coming back as separate individual items. For those that had a chance to look at the agenda report for this evening, we're talking about over $20 million in amendments to our budget that really don't have the kind of description that we often see with a lot of changes in the way that we allocate our funds. And because of this, there's a huge shortfall in the kind of information that council and the public should expect to make educated, well-reasoned decisions. It's really important the way that things are listed within an agenda because it signals to the community the kind of decisions that are being made. When we're allocating $15 million for the golf course project, $3 million for the strategic IT plan, and a slew of other changes through basically what is amount to single line items in an Excel sheet, the public really doesn't have the opportunity to see that and weigh in. As we know, these agendas can be hundreds or thousands of pages long. The public often relies on the report at the very beginning of the agenda to know what items that they really want to look into and what they really want to kind of dissect and understand, and couching position controls and millions of dollars in changes under a receive and file budget report doesn't give the public that opportunity to truly understand the decisions that are being made. So with these comments, I would like to, and Ms. Deputy City Clerk and Mr. Clerk, I'd like to kind of separate out a couple actions for this item tonight, and I'd like to make a few different motions. The first thing is that when it comes to the golf course project, I would like to motion that the amendment to the budget to approve the $15,450,000 in appropriations be authorized. I would also like to motion that for these other items that move money, that they come back as separate agenda items with their descriptions as to the usuals that we see in terms of financial impact, the background, and then the supporting documentation for these changes. And then lastly, I would also like within this item to direct staff to create a policy where budget amendments appear as individual agenda items instead of nestled within quarterly reports. And I would also like to create a policy where changes to the table of organization also appear as individual agenda items with the documents that my colleague described, that being what we're looking at in terms of salary, in terms of benefits, why the positions are being requested, and a description if the positions are new or they haven't been part of our table of organization before, having that description of that position. So, Madam Deputy City Clerk, if we're ready, I can separate out those motions. I'm sorry, I can't see beyond my computer screen. Where was that, Ms. Friend? I'm sorry, the time for public comment concluded. Margo's talking, but are we ready to record the motions or do I just go forward? Margo is. Ms. Fernandez, are we ready for the?
If you could clarify, what is it that you're?
So we'll take these one at a time. We'll take these different motions one at a time.
Okay.
The request is to take each motion one at a time.
So I'm
I think
having a
that's
hard
the
time
best
hearing.
approach. So why don't we start, Mr. Mayor, with your first, well, we've had staff presentation. It is
If you'd like me to
basically-
take the motions,
hold
with
on
the city clerk.
This is basically a receive and file, right, Michael?
Just to clarify, as presented, the actions are clearly noted on the agenda report of what's being requested. So no, it was not receive and file. If you look at the three requested actions, they're very clearly spelled out. So
So
if
there's
there's a
certain
separate
amendments to the
motion, then,
budget
yeah.
that's being offered. And the mayor is offering certain amendments to the amendments. So why don't we take them one at a time?
Thank you. So first, I would like to motion to amend the budget to approve the $15,450,000 for the golf course project. Mr. Clerk?
But do we have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr.
Why don't we restate the motion?
The city clerk can repeat the motion.
So the motion was to amend the budget to, what was the amount again?
To approve for $15,450,000
To the
Understood.
golf course.
to the golf course project.
Understood. So there is a first and a second. Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. The second motion, and I'll bifurcate these, with particular respect to the IT strategic plan, I would like to motion that this item come back as a separate agenda item. And when it comes back, I would like the agenda to include all of the proposals that the city received for this project, the scoring criteria that the city used and the scores of the applicants, and also the final professional services agreement. That is my motion.
I second.
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. The third motion is that the other requested budget amendments come back as their own agenda items with the proper background and descriptions.
I second that.
Do you have a second?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. And lastly, I would like to motion to direct staff to create a policy whereby budget amendments appear as individual agenda items in the future. And then also that changes to the table of organization, adding or subtracting or changing positions also appear as its own individual agenda item. Is there a second?
I second.
Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. Thank you very much. Item 4, review of city council applications will be moved to the end of the meeting, so we will move on to the consent calendar. I will ask my colleagues if there are any items that they would like to pull. Ms. Tamayo?
So these are items number 1 through, well, as I understood, also you were going to hold over to be discussed concurrently with item number 4, item number 18. And actually, I don't think we ever, did we convene the special meeting? I don't think so. So why don't we, Mayor, with your permission, we'll convene the special meeting, which is item number 1. So, Mr. City Clerk, well, would you, Mr. Mayor, would you please then convene the the adjourned special city council meeting at this time, and we can do roll call.
Yes, I'd like to call to order the adjourned special city council meeting at 7:22. Mr. City Clerk? A roll.
Councilmember Tamayo,
This is for attendance at the special meeting.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Present.
Mayor Torres.
Here.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, then it would be appropriate to entertain a motion. Well, you stated the consent agenda. This would include items number 5 through 18. And unless anyone, well, 18 you've indicated you want to be dealt with separately in conjunction with item 1 on the special agenda and also item number 4 on the regular agenda. So with that, Mr. Mayor, it would be appropriate to poll the council, see items 5 through 17 for approval or anyone who wishes to pull those items. And tonight we start with, why don't we start with Councilmember Tamayo. Any items you wish to pull?
Yes, item number 7 and item number 9.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta.
Item 7.
Item 7. And Mayor Torres.
I will pull items 7 and 16.
16. So unless I'm mistaken, we have items number 7, 16, and 17.
7,
9.
9, and 16.
9.
Yes.
Yes.
7, 9, 16. And then 18.
And then, of course, items 18 and item 1 on the adjourned special meeting and item 4, which is part of the regular meeting, will be discussed concurrently. So with those exceptions, we need a motion to approve those items, the rest of the
Yes, I motion to approve items 5, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 17 of the consent calendar.
I second.
Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye.
So then, Mr. Mayor, that takes us to item number 7, is the first consent agenda that was pulled.
Thank you. The council will now hear item number 7 of the regular adjourned meeting, adopt resolution number 23-11, accepting certain roads and streets into the city street system, and resolution number 23-10, naming a certain public street and road, quote, Topgolf Way, unquote, and finding such actions exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Councilmember Tamayo, you have any questions or comments?
The question is this a requirement of some type of the funds or anything like that? The naming?
The naming?
Yes. That
It's
particular name.
No, that naming was at the request of Topgolf, obviously. Yeah. And yeah, let me clarify also, because I know a couple of the public comments, it sounded like they understood that we were going to rename Via San Clemente. That is not the case. There is a new entry road that turns right towards the Topgolf and the new clubhouse, right before you get to Home 2 Suites. Up till now, we've been referring to it generically as Entry Road. So that name would be for that street, not Via San Clemente.
Councilmember Tamayo, are there any other questions or comments?
No further.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta?
Yes, well, no comments, no questions. I think generally the comment is that seeing that this is a request of Topgolf, unless I think it comes with any type of monetary incentive, I don't think the city should just move forward with the naming of a street. I think that we can be creative, whether it's honoring something historical within the city and naming a new street, but kind of going forward and naming a street Topgolf, seeing that it's, I think, a 20-year contract if Topgolf wasn't to be here after that fact, we would have to kind of move forward with rechanging that name again. And so personally, I just don't feel comfortable naming that Topgolf Way unless there is a benefit that the city will be receiving, seeing that Montebello historically has not had any type of development impact fees or fees that come from these major developments. We have not been able to receive any type of extra revenue through these developments. I just don't think we should give up a street name that easily. So that's my comment.
Excuse me, Ms. Iser, I'm sorry. You're speaking out from the audience, and ma'am, I'm sorry. With all due respect, you're out of order from just kind of speaking out from the audience, and it causes some, ma'am, one moment, please. It causes some disruption on what's the business portion of what's going on here and the dialogue between the council and the director. So with that, Mr. Mayor, may we have the response from Mr. Enriquez?
Yes, please, Mr. Enriquez.
If I may just clarify one thing is, it's two separate resolutions. So I don't know, Mr. City Attorney, if it's possible to pass one resolution and not the other. The acceptance of the street, regardless of what name it's given, is important to the project. That does affect funding. It makes it eligible for transportation funds that are non-project bond funds or general fund funds. And it also really simplifies the building of public utilities like the water and the gas within this roadway if it's made public, rather than going through very complicated easements to allow them to happen or to be installed outside of a public right-of-way.
Yeah, it is possible to bifurcate the recommended actions, so to approve one, not the other. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any other questions or comments?
No, that completed my comments.
I feel that the comments that we're going to share are a repeat, so to save staff and the audience some time, I'll entertain a motion from council.
I motion to approve the resolution number 2312, but in regards to the naming of the street, if that is something that can come back and just have more council deliberation and input, that would be the best path forward. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at number 11. You're right. 23-11.
And just to make a friendly amendment to that motion, if that can come back at the February, I believe it's February 25th meeting.
So, trying to clarify, the motion is to approve 23-11.
Yes.
And to have 23-10 come back at another time. And it's the mayor's request to have 23-10 come back at the meeting of February 22nd?
22nd.
Yeah. So why don't we deal with this? Let's consider the Mayor Pro Tem's motion to approve the resolution, item number 1, adopt resolution number 23-11. Is there a motion? There's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
May we take a roll call on that, Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye.
Then in dealing with item number 2, which is to adopt resolution 23-10, I believe there's a substitute motion from the mayor, or I'm not sure if it's Mayor Pro Tem's motion, to defer this action to February 22nd.
And I apologize, make that March 8th.
March 8th?
Yeah.
Okay. James, is there any?
There's no urgency with the naming, although if I may ask for if there's any kind of direction as to what process we go through to select a name, Because if I bring it back for March 11th, it would have to be with a name in mind.
Yeah, and I think that's what council would further like to consider. So we can work with staff along the way to make sure that
Sure.
we bring that item back.
But there is no urgency in the actual naming.
Thank you, Mr. Enriquez.
Yep.
Right. I think council is just asking for a little bit more time to decide and deliberate.
So we're dealing only now with item 2 of the recommendation. There's a motion to continue to March 8th. We need a second.
I second that.
Now we have roll call.
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye.
And then we have item 3, which is to execute a certificate of, no, so that will be held over to the 8th of March. Is that correct?
That item actually dealt with the processing of both resolutions.
2 and 3 will be held over to the 8th.
As long as it's clear that we can actually process the resolution 23-11.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 and 3 will be held over to March 8th. Unless there's any objection, Mayor?
Yeah, just to clarify, item number 3, it does say authorize the city manager to execute certificates and any other related documents to consummate the acceptance of said roads. So I would venture that with the approval of resolution 2311, that's included in there. However, authorize the city manager to include the naming of the roads in that is being asked to be held over for another meeting.
Understood.
Moving on to item 9, authorize the city manager to execute the exchange agreement number 4071 with LA Metro of Federal Surface Transportation Program, Local, and Highway Infrastructure Programs Funds. Ms. Tamayo, you pulled this item?
Yes, I pulled this item because I do want to discuss this issue. This is for about $800,000 to be used for the resurfacing of Plaza Drive. Plaza Drive is that small street that's behind Metro Heights that leads to the backside of Lincoln. The improvements could be typically included as part of the development that's going on up there, which is the Metro Heights. But this development and the Topgolf development were not charged development impact fees. Why? Because the city doesn't have the structure to do that. What is a development impact fee? It's a revenue source. It's a fee that is charged by a local government to a developer in connection with the approval of projects. This fee will offset the cost of infrastructures, public services improvements such as roads, schools, and parks. So I know this has been brought up before and there was consensus, so I wanted to see if we could get consensus, or not consensus, but when this item can come back with some type of fee structure that the city can implement so that we could have money for these types of improvements.
So I completely agree with that statement. I would, I think when you, later on this year, when you get a preview of our current need in paving roads, you'll see that we're short on funds. So any new revenue source would absolutely be very welcome. The issue of adopting such a fee, I'm afraid that's beyond my purview. That's something that community development would initiate and go through the process working with the city attorney for adoption of such fees.
Yeah, thanks. If you don't mind, thank you. So implementation of a development impact fee takes its own separate fee study, which obviously is a process. So in order to set a development or several development impact fees for the city, we'd first have to procure a consultant to do the study. do the study, and then come with a proposal for those development impact fees, which is something that's not currently underway. We have a user fee study underway, which is completely different. User fee studies are things that building permits, plan check fees, recreational community services fees. That has been underway and that is currently underway. That is completely separate from a development impact fee process, which we would need to engage a consultant and carry out that process before we're able to present something to council with recommendations.
Mr. Mayor, may I? So on April 28th of 2021, I did receive consensus for a development impact fee structure to be formalized and brought forth for action. So from my understanding is that the process, or was told that the process would come back through a study. Seeing that that's been well over a year now, can we receive an update or information in regards to when we would have that fee structure, development impact fee structure brought back? Simply because we've seen that within that past year, there have been many major developments and incoming major developments coming to the city. And that's revenue that we're really losing in regards to being able to improve some of our infrastructure throughout our city. And so I think the longer this process takes, the more missed opportunities we go through. And so just trying to understand if we can have a clear direct timeline in regards to having this brought back for council to take action.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I can just add to that, we were given direction for a fee study, which I know Michael's team is working on that. We'll have to get back to you and we'll have to look back on that date. But this item is separate from that, so if we can take action on this particular item, we'd appreciate that. But as far as the fee study, I think we probably have like 6 more months left of that one. We'll come back for that. And just so we're clear, the Cesar Chavez project, we're not charged developer impact fees as well. So anything that's been in the queue, that fee schedule has to be adopted prior for us to actually have those built into any future developments.
Understood.
Thank you.
So with that being considered, I will ask for a motion acknowledging the Assistant City Manager's comment that I think there's 2 different issues here. One is approving the exchange agreement, and then the second is directing staff to go along the path of creating a development impact fee study, which, as Mr. Stolars has stated, is different from a user fee study, which is currently being.
Right, so those should be taken separately. If we're getting direction to do that, that shouldn't be part of this.
Mr. City Attorney, are we able to consider both? So I'll entertain a motion.
Are we able to entertain both within one single motion, or is that separate votes?
If Mayor Pro Tem would state her motion, and then we can go from there.
So motion to approve the item, as well as including that, or give direction that staff work on creating a development impact fee structure to bring back to council for a formal vote.
I second that.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Clerk.
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. Thank you very much. Next, we will consider item number 16. Item number 16 is payment of bills. Adopt resolution number 23-09, approving the city warrant register of demands dated February 13, 2023. I'd like to make a motion that this be approved with the exception for warrant number 598866. Is there a second?
I second.
Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. Moving along the agenda, next is AB 1234 travel reports. Going down the line, Councilmember Tamayo, do you have anything to report?
I do. So Mayor Torres and myself attended the new Mayors and Council Members Academy that took place at Universal City on February 1st through February 3rd. The conference had workshops on leadership, procedures, the crucial role that an organization like the League of Cities plays in city governance. But of most interest to me were the workshops on financial responsibility. We were given a great overview on how other cities carry out their duties on financial reporting, and also how us as elected officials can play a role in the oversight duties. I'll bring these concepts forward and work with our city manager on exploring these policies.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Tamayo. Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, anything to report?
No travel reports, thank you.
Thank you. And as for my report, as Ms. Tamayo stated, we attended the League of California Cities New Council Members and Mayors Conference. I can say that I continue to be impressed with the League of California Cities, even though I've been on council for the last 4 years, and we covered very basic elements like the Brown Act, the order of a meeting, the roles and responsibilities of various parts of the organization. I can say that I learned a lot of interesting facts. I think that there are definitely some best practices that we can bring to the city. I shared on my social media, for those of you that follow along and post and take a look at my stories, some of the things that I think we can bring to the city of Montebello to improve the way that we communicate and the efficiency of our operations. So I'd like to just congratulate the league on a very successful conference. Congratulate Councilmember Tamayo for really just getting in here. I think the first couple months on council have been extraordinary, and she's been taking everything with poise and in stride, and that is my report. Next, we'll move on to council orals. Ms. Tamayo?
I'm sorry. I had on here the applications for the open positions. What I wanted to do is just make it clear where on the website these can be found. So we'll see if we can get to that. But if not, the website does have where these you can download the applications, and that is currently open for the Parks and Rec Commission and for youth and education. No. Okay. Okay, great, yeah. That's okay. Right. So it's under the city clerks when you go on to the website? Yes. So if you can, like, go from the web page to show where it is showing.
So if you go on to the city's website, under city clerk's office, under departments, administration, and city clerk's office, there's a tab on the left, commissions and committees. If you scroll to the bottom, you may find the application, which you can submit to the city clerk's office.
Okay. And then specifically the District 1 and the District 4 vacancies are listed there.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Tamayo. I will jump around my council orals just a bit to follow up on my colleague here. I just wanted to also announce the vacancies on my commissions. Being that we did a move to by districts and in trying to uplift the idea of very strong representation that is very specifically focused in our communities, I would like to appoint members to the Planning Commission, the Youth Commission, and the, I apologize, I'm blanking very quickly on the third one here. One sec. Parks and Recreation Commission, of course. I'd like to announce the vacancies on the Planning, Parks and Recreation, and Youth Commissions. So for those of you that have friends, family, or that live in District 4, I encourage you to apply. If you go to my social media and you look at my postings, in addition to the form that Councilmember Tamayo and the Deputy City Clerk just shared, you'll also see some of the additional things that I'm looking for in my commissioners. These are very highly important positions. You have the ability to comment on land use issues. You have the ability to comment on the kinds of programs that we have in our city. And for the youth, this can really be a resume builder, showing that you have a very early engagement on a very large scale. So with that being said, I believe that these positions should be very competitive, and I'm looking for highly qualified candidates. As I mentioned, you can take a look at those postings there to see some of the things that would make the ideal candidate. Moving on, I would like to request council consensus directing staff to prepare a community survey exploring the effects of COVID in Montebello, and two, allocating American Rescue Plan Act funds to address the most pressing needs as identified by survey respondents. So what I mean by this item, this is something that I've been an advocate for ever since Montebello received about $16.8 million in COVID relief funds, is that when we accepted these funds, or when these funds were first created by the federal government and dispersed to cities all across the country, the idea was that cities were suffering a great loss in revenue from the impacts of people having to stay home, of having to telecommute, of losing their jobs, of being sick and taking care of loved ones. And one thing that this city and the previous majority never did was go back to the community and ask them, how have you been affected? It's something that I was an advocate for over and over again for various reasons. I'm sure it fell on deaf ears, but I think now we still have the opportunity, since these funds have until December 2024 to be expended, to check in with our community and ask, how are you doing? We've made these statements about mental health, saying that we should check in with people. We've talked about how food service programs are essential to our seniors and people that have been immobile and have had to quarantine, and yet council hasn't taken any significant step with these $17 million to really find out what is going on within our city. So that's a very quick explanation, but I will separate out my requests here. So first of all, I'm asking for consensus of my colleagues directing staff to prepare a community survey exploring the effects of COVID in Montebello. There's a lot of best practices that a lot of cities have already done, and so that would be my first request. And I guess I'll just ask for a voice vote if I have consensus.
No, we don't have to roll call, or?
You can just say aye.
Okay, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And second, once those effects in our community have been determined and seen the highest and greatest uses of these funds, I would like staff to work out a way to allocate a certain portion. I don't have a hard number in mind necessarily right now. I think that that should be determined by the need that we see and the extent to which we see that need. But second, I would like, just so everyone's on the same page, council and staff, allocating American Rescue Plan Act funds to address the most pressing needs as identified by survey respondents. And I will ask for a voice vote. I'm sorry, Ms. Salazar?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to clarify that we booked the ARPA funds as revenue loss, so this would be for use of general fund reserves.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And so that would be a voice vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. There is consensus to both of those, and I appreciate my colleagues taking a step to address the worst effects of
Mr.
the
Mayor, may I
greatest
make a
pandemic in 100
comment?
years. Yes, absolutely, Ms.
I
Peralta.
would just like to recognize and just really commend how you've really championed the need to include our community, especially when it comes to historical one-time funding. Despite multiple months right now kind of going after or we're still in the pandemic, but not necessarily in the peak of it, I think continuing to champion the use of that money towards our community is something of importance and something to really value. And at the end of the day, our community still continues to struggle. We see long lines at our food distribution centers. We see residents, coming to us and asking us about the resources that are available to them because they're still feeling the financial impact and burden of what we all went through. And so again, just really want to recognize that and just commend you for that. Thank you for continuing to champion that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peralta. Moving on to my second council oral, I would like to ask council for consensus reaffirming our commitment to report on a quarterly basis the metrics of our Montebello Community Assistance Program. And the reason why I bring this oral forward is that when the Montebello Community Assistance Program was established, I believe it's been about 2 years now, council received a beautiful, robust, and information-packed report on the kinds of activities that the MCAP program engages in. Everything from the number of clients that they've interacted with, the demographics of those clients, the kinds of services that have been offered, and just a very well-rounded and robust resource. And I think now is as important as ever for council to receive reports regarding this program, because I think just in the last several months alone, this council and the previous one have allocated millions of dollars in supporting staffing and the various missions, and I think even going out several years with our home ARP dollars. So if we are really going to address the problem of homelessness and try and address it in a very effective way and in a way that gets people off the streets and either gets them the help that they need or the housing that they need, I think this council and the community at large would be very interested in understanding how we're making progress in those aims. And again, just especially considering that we're spending pretty significant staff resources to go after grants, and the San Gabriel Valley COG is expending vast resources to address what is really termed one of the greatest issues of this day. So I will ask my colleagues for a voice vote for consensus, reaffirming our commitment to for staff reports on a quarterly basis, the metrics of our Montebello Community Assistance Program.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Third, I'd like to request council consensus directing staff to explore conducting a study through local colleges on the mental and behavioral health issues within Montebello. At the National Mayor's Conference, this is something that was discussed in the sessions, and I know that there have been residents and business owners that have been very interested in engaging with the city of Montebello and trying to determine what the mental health impacts have been within our city. Being that there is the energy to do so, and being that we have local colleges and professors that would benefit on their side from entering their master's programs into this kind of research, and that the city of Montebello would benefit from better understanding the mental health needs in our community, I really see this as supplementing and supporting my second council oral asking for a COVID relief study, but I would ask my colleagues for a voice vote of consensus to explore conducting a mental health study, partnering with local colleges.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And for my last oral, this would have been a lot more fun At the previous meeting, obviously, I was in no condition to attend or celebrate this, but I just want to congratulate our Montebello Commerce delegation that just spent the last weekend in Sacramento advocating for a bill that they put together. Mayor Pro Tem Peralta and myself were able to attend their bill night at the YMCA, where they presented to other elected officials, including ourselves, as well as parents, on their ideas on how to update the education code so as to teach students. I think something that we would all agree on is that we need education in basic financial literacy, education on things like credit card debt, on loans, a lot of those elements that we enter into as adults being 18 years old, but really having no concept of. I think it's my understanding that the bill passed the Senate, that it passed the House, and that the student governor also approved it. One of the things that's really amazing about this program is that when bills actually pass all the way through, and keep in mind that this is a statewide program that has thousands of students, that those successful bills actually go to our state representatives for consideration. And over the history of the program, which now has been about a little over 70 years, I believe 6 or 7 bills have actually turned into California law. So I think that it's pretty incredible that our own students were able to identify an issue, were able to write up legislation that fit right into our education code, presented it to their colleagues across the state, and found wild success. I'd also like to thank our city attorney. Every time I get the opportunity to talk about youth in government, I have a very big point of pride. Mr. Glassman actually established the, what essentially amounts to a moot court for the youth in government. And so this is a highly competitive program where a lot of students apply. A select few actually go through it, and students get to engage in a full legal simulation with a prosecutor, with a defense attorney, with judges, a jury, the whole 9 yards. They're given the essential elements of motions and all the different things that come with trial, and they're really put to the fire in a very real kind of way. So I'd also like to thank Mr. Glassman for establishing that program and for really being the beating heart of teaching our young leaders legislation as young as 14 and 15 years old and all the way through high school. That concludes council orals. Now for consideration will be the 3 items that have been joined to be heard here at the end. Those are items 4 and 18 from the regular meeting and item number 1 from the special meeting. That would be item number 4, review of city council applications received and consideration of appointment for 2 at-large city council seats with an ending term of November 12th, 2024. Item number 18, waive the second reading and adopt ordinance number 2451, amending sections 2.08.050 of the Montebello Municipal Code to repeal the provision establishing a temporary 7-member city council to cause the city council to remain a 5-member body. And if you'll excuse me for just one moment. And the item for the special meeting, which is entering into the urgency ordinance, reverting the 7-member body back to a 5-member body. At this time, I believe it's most appropriate at this time for council deliberation whether to revert back to a 5-member body or whether to retain the 7-seat position. I appreciate the applicants that have gone with us through this extensive and laborious process. I apologize for the conduct of my colleagues that have caused these extra meetings. This entire issue could have been taken care of several times over the past couple months, but unfortunately, what I would say are very aggressive actions in trying to stop business have taken place. And so here we sit on the very final day that this council must take action, still considering this item. I would like to just reiterate, there was a comment that was made by a member of the community a little bit earlier, how this all has seemed as chaos. I would just like to support that comment. The decision to move to a seven-member body back in June of 2022 was an erroneous one. It's something that Councilmember Peralta and I lobbied heavily against at every opportunity. We talked about how wrong it was that we entered into this position. And I'd also like to just remind the audience that the idea didn't come up until the 11th hour as we were finally approving which seats were going to be going on the ballot. Through the entire 18-month process that we were going through districting, never was it mentioned, contemplated, or discussed of moving to a seven-member body. I will not comment on the motivations. I will just say that we are here today faced with a very serious situation. In terms of reverting back to a five-member body, there has been the assertion that California law dictates that all vacancies must be filled. Of course, on the opposite end, we've seen Mr. Rafferty return along with a new attorney saying that a seven-member body, that the opposite is an untenable situation. And of course, within all this, the idea of whether 3 or 4 members of our current body make a quorum. With that being said, I will ask my colleagues in consideration of whether to revert to a 5-member body or whether to retain 7 seats, if there are any comments or questions. And we'll go down the line, Ms. Tamayo.
So based on a process that's been jeopardized and on pending litigations and for financial prudency, and with the fact that all districts are represented, I think we should move forward with the current 5 council seats. It's my sincere apologies to the candidates. I've been present and open to a selection of the additional 2 seats, but as mentioned, a fair process has been compromised. It's unfortunate to not see all of my colleagues here working together to find solutions for Montebello.
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Tamayo. Mayor Pro Tem Peralta, any questions or comments?
Yes, I do have some comments, seeing that I know we have residents who have followed this process all throughout since the very beginning of the issue of districting taking place, and other new residents that have joined along throughout the most recent process. And I do just want to state how extremely torn and broken I am about this. From the very beginning, as mentioned by Mayor Torres, we both sounded the alarms and continuously expressed our concerns about districting and the process that took place. I spoke about the issues of running all districts up at once, something that no other jurisdiction in the face of our state had ever done before, and the uncertain situation riddled with liabilities and threats of lawsuits we would be facing if we went down that road. Our concerns were blatantly ignored, and a shameful districting process was shoved down our throats at the political whim and pleasure of certain council members that would benefit from this at the cost of our community's stability. A whole election later, multiple candidates running in every district, here we are now, facing the issue of 2 at-large vacancies that could have been prevented if the past majority would have acted with integrity and fairness and would have phased out the at-large seats like every other city in our state has done when going to districting, rather than placing them up for election all at once in an experimental effort to gain a political advantage. Despite all of this, Mayor Torres and I have continued to show up, have continued to participate, have continued to work with a chaotic council despite having 2 current members who have used every opportunity to halt business this past month as we have tried to move forward with this item. Now we are here today, the very last day of the deadline to take action on this item per state law, with multiple potential lawsuits pending being used to twist our arms in either direction. If no action is taken tonight, we would face a potential special election that would cost our city anywhere between $300,000 to $400,000 of our residents' tax dollars, which would go directly down the drain rather than investing that money back into our community. Taking no action tonight would take this process completely out of our city's control and risk the city moving to a special election. And that's something I'm not okay with. As we've been part of this process throughout months and months and things changing every step of the way, I just continue to just be torn about what is that right decision to make. I did want to just ensure that I said this on the record, because it's been a very just, I think, derailing and jading process to be here now and not have, the council as a whole making this decision together. For now, those are the comments that I'd like to say.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. And just to add some final comments of my own, in considering this item and in having the honor and the privilege of leading our city over the next year, there's a lot of power that's afforded to this position through the ability to guide conversations, the ability to put items on an agenda, the ability to call special meetings, the ability to affect the future of our city through a very simple action. I think that it should be clear to the community, but I would like to just kind of emphasize that the special meetings that we've had to call, particularly just for this topic, in a way, including tonight, even though tonight's technically termed an adjourned meeting, and the fact that we're considering both a 7-member body and a 5-member body on the last day, I think speaks to how torn this council has been on this decision. We really are beset on all sides by poor choices. I think that this is a legacy of the previous majority in trying to attain whatever goals they had. That this wasn't taken seriously as a possible outcome is really a disservice to the residents, to our staff, and to this council who's trying to really chart a new way forward for our city towards great practices, raising the morale of our community, and really just getting down to business. The fact that for the last 6 months, we've just been talking about whether or not the 2 extra seats on this dais is going to be filled, I think, as important as it is, in a lot of ways, has also just been an unfortunate waste of time. And just in consideration of all of the various factors, I would believe at this time that retaining a 5-member body would be in the best interest of our residents and in the interest of the community. It's what Montebello has historically had this last 102 years. It's what should have been done from the outset. And with those comments, I will entertain a motion by my colleagues. And Mr. City Attorney, do you want to kind of clarify the several motions that we're considering this evening?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think it would be appropriate in light of the comments to first address item number 4 on your regular agenda, which is the second reading of the, I'm sorry, that is item number, oh, my apologies, item number 18. Item number 18, which was pulled from the consent, which is to waive the second reading and the reading of the resolution, I'm sorry, the reading of the ordinance in its entirety, and adopt ordinance number 2415, amending section 2.08.050 of the Montebello Municipal Code to repeal the provision establishing a temporary 7-member city council to cause the city council to remain a 5-member body. So I think that would be appropriate to entertain a motion to take such action as recommended on item number 18 first.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
Mr. City Clerk, if you can please call roll.
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. Thank you very much.
And then, Mr. Mayor, it would be appropriate to go to the adjourned special meeting, and this is consideration of adoption of the same ordinance as an urgency ordinance number 2462, amending section 2.08.050 of the Montebello Municipal Code to repeal the provision establishing a temporary 7-member city council and to cause the city council to remain a 5-member body and to waive reading of that urgency ordinance. On this item, the urgency elements are contained in that urgency ordinance 2462. That would require a motion and a second. It would also require a 4/5 vote, but tonight, since we only have 3 members present, it would require a unanimous vote.
Mr. City Clerk, well, first, can I have a motion to approve the item?
I motion to approve the urgency ordinance.
Is there a second?
I second.
Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Tamayo,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Peralta,
Aye.
Mayor Torres.
Aye. And the urgency ordinance reverting back to a 5-member council is approved unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor. Then moving on to item 4, which at this point, because of the action of the City Council, it would appear that taking any action on item 4, which is the review of City Council applications, would be moot. So it would be appropriate then to take no action on item 4, and that would then conclude your agenda.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. All items being heard, it is now appropriate for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I second.
And the meeting is adjourned at 8:14 p.m.